Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Hannah and on my channel I post anti-MLM content. I also have a clothing reselling business on the Poshmark app, so I post a lot of reselling and Poshmark tips and tricks videos as well. For today, I have an MLM horror stories for you. So this is the stories that you have sent me. These are your personal experiences. I have not pre-read any of these stories, so you and I were going to read through them together for the first time and react to them. Just wanted to say a quick thank you if you did send me your stories. I've gotten a lot of submissions even from the last horror stories video I posted, but honestly, I can never have too many stories. So if you have your own personal experience being in an MLM, or someone tried to recruit you into one, or maybe you have a close friend or family member that has an experience with one and they'd be willing to share it, anything like that is excellent. I would love to hear your story, and thank you for trusting me with your experience and allowing me to share it on this channel. My email is in the description box of all of my videos if at any point you feel like you would like to share your story with me. And with that, let's read some stories. All right, so this one says, "Hi Hannah, well, I've had many run-ins with the MLM industry being a military spouse." Oh man. "It's unfortunate that both stay-at-home moms and military spouses are often enticed by the idea of working from anywhere while being home with your kids, which as a work-at-home mom with my own photography business is not as easy as it sounds. Absolutely not. I don't have kids yet, but I would assume that that is so challenging to do your job from home. Lots of people have left me comments saying this. They're like, I like going to work and doing my work at work so that when I come home, I can be a present parent and I'm not on my phone, I'm not on my computer, I'm not in a meeting. And while it absolutely can work for some, it's not a perfect option for all people. So I do hate that there's this stigma that like military spouses or stay-at-home moms, like they need an MLM. No, they do not. Working from home is not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. And I relate to you being a military spouse. I am also a military spouse, and it's very challenging to move across the country every couple years and have to pick up and find a new job every time. And unfortunately, that makes us prime targets for MLMs. Anyway, I'll tell my most recent run-in that I actually almost got sucked into. I was bombarded with multiple ladies in my community that joined Isogenics. I attended a few shake parties to be nice and show my support, as some of them were my friends. Eventually, I decided to order a weight loss pack. Yes, they spell pack without a C. However, being aware of the toxic undertone of the MLM industry, I made it clear I only wanted to be a customer and had no desire to become a distributor. Initially, my friend that signed me up totally honored that and didn't make it seem like a big deal. Well, boy, was I wrong. Right when I received my package, she was calling and texting me constantly about finding two friends to start my journey with, aka recruiting them. I kept pushing her off and she'd drop it for a few days. After my first month, I did lose a fair amount of weight and I started to really buy into it. I was stoked about my weight loss and felt so special with all of her encouraging messages, shares, etc. People from her downline started to reach out to me upon seeing her share my testimony on her Instagram stories, and I full-on decided to join the business. I was hooked on the sense of community and being an inspiration, even though I'd only lost 20 pounds. You're bringing up a really important tactic that a lot of the health and wellness MLMs will do. They will share other people's results and other people's testimonies and other people's before and after photos and things like that on their Instagram. And the main purpose of that is to build some sense of legitimacy. Like, look, this person's using it and they had results, so it can't possibly be a scam, which is interesting because MLM products, they can be good. I feel like the marketing and the claims can always be pretty misleading, but I have heard a lot of testimonies that people tried a certain product and they liked it or it worked for them, and that's great. But more often than not, the accusation of an MLM being a scam or being a pyramid scheme has nothing to do with the products. It has everything to do with the business model and the way that the money is made. So when MLM reps, they're talking about their products and they're like, look at how effective it is and it can't be a scam. It's kind of like, well, you're kind of missing the point. Let's talk about the reason that you're even sharing this person's testimony to begin with. It's because you're hoping to sell this and you're hoping to recruit other people into the business model so that you can make money. That whole dynamic has always been kind of interesting to me. So fast forwarding through my decision to sign up, my upline told me that she would help me with my first call, and I was so nervous. She asked me what the potential likes and specifically asked, is she religious? So I'm assuming potential means like potential recruit. And I was a little wary of that because it's something she referenced often when trying to talk me into buying my first order in the first place. But I told her she was. She asked me, does she have any health issues? And I told her to my knowledge she did. For the next 45 to 50 minutes, I was cringing through the whole call, listening to her tell her this opportunity was God-given, oh no, and would cleanse her body of her ailments and all the manipulation. It grossed me out so much because I was spoken to about all of the same things. Just insert my challenges instead of hers. Right after the phone call, I called corporate to cancel my account because I refused to be a part of that get it? Yes. Long story short, I've never spoken to the upline again, and she very swiftly deleted me off of everything. Along with all the people that messaged me about how proud they were of me from my initial weight loss, I wish they could see the manipulation for what it is. Thanks for sharing if you do. Wow. Okay, I love this story. This is amazing. And you have confirmed for me a suspicion that I've had for a really long time. I have always wondered if people who get into MLMs realize those manipulation tactics. And it seems like obviously you did. You were like, wait a second, that's the same thing you told me. You're manipulating her in the same way you manipulated me. I really hate that her screening questions for you was like, is she religious? Does she have health concerns? Because she knows that those are two things that she can use to her advantage, and she can flip them and twist them and manipulate them for the sole purpose of getting this person to buy into this opportunity. I hate that. That's called faith manipulation. That's disgusting. But I am so proud of you that you were just kind of sitting there and the wheels were turning like, wait a minute, this is so messed up, and that you took action immediately upon ending the call. But thank you for confirming that this is actually something that does happen occasionally, because I have never understood how people can get into an MLM and then they're trained on how to manipulate people, and they like don't put the pieces together that is the same tactic that was used on them to get them into the MLM. Anyway, I love this story. Thank you so much for sending it to me, and good for you. And from military spouse to military spouse, you and I, we do not need MLMs, okay? There are so many other ways to be happy, successful, fulfilled in your life. And I'm so beyond happy for you that you realized this very early on and that you are now out of isogenics. All right, the next story says, hi Hannah, I absolutely love your videos. Thank you so much. I unexpectedly got sucked into the anti-MLM world just over a month ago, and I can't get enough. You and me too, sister. I love anti-MLM content in all forms. All of my favorite other anti-MLM creators are in the description box of my videos. If you're looking for some more, go check them out, watch their videos, subscribe to them as well. Watching videos and listening to podcasts got me thinking about any experiences of my own with MLMs. I've never been in an MLM, and I've rarely received messages to join one, but then to my surprise, I realized Rodan and Fields is an MLM. The woman I nannied for over 5 years was a seller of Rodan and Fields. The more I think about it, the more upset I get. Here is my story. I'm so excited. 8 years ago, right after I turned 20, I moved 4 hours away from home to attend a state college. This was an incredibly difficult transition for me for many reasons. One being, for the first time in my life, I began getting acne. It was pretty bad all over my face and sometimes chest. Sometimes I wouldn't even leave the house. I was unhappy with my weight and I had no friends. I felt very alone. I moved with less than $1,000 to my name and had no emergency savings to support me, so I needed to find work quickly. I set up a profile on a babysitting website, and I met with the first woman to reach out with me. She had 4 very young boys and just needed someone to watch the youngest one so she could go for runs. She was often training for marathons. She worked from home, aka Rodan and Fields. I don't remember how quickly she tried selling to me, but it was within the first 6 months for sure. She convinced me to try their products. They had something for acne. I was so desperate to get rid of it and had no other ideas, so I was an easy sell. Side note, I heard Rodan and Fields made Proactive, so they must be legit. You know, I feel like I might have heard this at one point, that Rodan and Fields and Proactive were associated in some way. But what's funny is that I used to work in Ulta, and it was kind of a joke between all of us employees to like never recommend Proactive because it was trash. What do I know? I'm not a dermatologist. I'm not a professional in any sense, but it was always just so funny. I've just heard so many terrible stories of people using Proactive, and it like destroys their skin even more than the acne did. I don't know if that has any validity to it, but it's just funny now seeing this, like they might be associated with Rodan and Fields. That's hilarious to me. We did work out a trade. I'd get my products from her when I needed them, and she would deduct the cost from my pay. I was still making decent money each month, but it was something like 200 plus for the entire line each time. Now remember, I was barely scraping by. Sometimes I had no money in my bank account, and I didn't turn on the heat once during winter because I couldn't afford it. I was living dollar to dollar, and that is a huge stressor, but hey, eventually the skincare was actually helping my acne a bit. Okay, that's good. But it didn't even occur to me that I could stop ordering from her and use that money towards other expenses. I do remember her trying to recruit me once. I told her I literally didn't know anyone, which was true, and she didn't really push it. After several years, I think I stopped using the full line as much and was ordering products a little less. After 4 years, they moved 2,500 miles away and invited me to move with them as a live-in nanny. That's cool. She said they would build me a mother-in-law or a tiny house. Spoiler alert, that never happened. I had just graduated and had a really bad living situation, so I saw it as an escape. I bought a new car to drive across the country because there ain't no way I'm living with them and not having a vehicle of my own to escape. Good idea. And said I'd give it 6 months. After being there for 3 weeks, I was taking a week off to go to a music festival a few hours away. I asked her for my paycheck before I left, and that's when I found out she was charging me $300 a week to live in the game room of their house. What? She didn't tell you that up front? I thought it was going to be per month. I was so shocked and didn't say anything. I took my very small check and left. I think this was the point I finally stopped ordering products because I was barely making enough to cover my car payment each month. So you thought it was $300 a month, but she was charging you $300 a week? I mean, what do I know? But that's like what? $1,200 a month to be living in a room in somebody's house? That seems like a lot to me. I moved away 6 months later despite her many efforts in getting me to stay. I mean, I don't blame her. She was getting the deal of the century. But now as I think back, I can't even imagine how many thousands of dollars I spent on products, and because we had a relationship, it didn't occur to me that she would take advantage of me. Not to mention charging me more in rent than I was paying back home for literally no privacy or space. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know how to stand up for myself back then. Now, in order to keep my skin clear, I wash it each morning and night with a $10 foam cleanser from the grocery store. Love that. If I had known more about Rodan and Fields and MLMs in general, I would have been able to make more informed decisions. She definitely wasn't as pushy as a lot of the others we hear about or see, and she is an amazing person, but I'm beginning to realize the impact her business had on me, and now when I look back, some of her actions make a lot more sense. Just glad she never recruited me. Thanks again for your videos. They are so informative and important. And thank you for sending me your story. This is very fascinating that you kind of got into the anti-MLM world and then you're like, wait a second, putting the pieces together. Like, I think I had an involvement with this once. Here's what I don't love. Okay, I don't love that she took advantage of her employee in a sense, right? She had a role that she needed filled. You filled that role for her. You were a live-in nanny or a babysitter. You were already serving her in that way, but she exploited that relationship even further by getting you to buy into her MLM products. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's against a lot of company policies in like traditional workplace settings that you can't be selling to other employees. I think things like school fundraisers and Girl Scouts is kind of on a different level, but I'm pretty sure that in a lot of traditional workplaces, you can't be actively pitching your coworkers things or like trying to sell them somebody else's products. I could be wrong. I'll look into it more after I'm done with this video, but because this isn't like a formal workplace setting and she hired you to come and work with her kids in her home with her family, she obviously doesn't have to play by the rules that other employers do. And I really, really dislike that she saw an opportunity in you and that she was like, here's a young person who might be feeling some insecurities about their skin right now, and they'd probably be willing to spend a lot of money on the products that I have to offer. They're probably not familiar with MLMs and she's going to be an easy sell. Like all of that feels so icky to me. And I'm sorry that you were taken advantage of in that way. You know, even if the products did work, even if she was kind of a good boss in a sense and you liked nannying for her family and she was kind to you and everything like that, all of that aside, it almost feels like she was getting like a 2-for-1 deal or something, as messed up as that sounds. Like she got away with paying you less money for your babysitting work while also getting you to buy her products so she could make a little bit of money in her MLM too. And I'm sure, just like you said, these days you're thinking back on a lot of those interactions and those moments, and everything is just painted in such a different light, right? And that's because unfortunately when you're in an MLM, things feel very calculated. Everything is seen as an opportunity. Everybody is seen as a dollar sign. And I'm really sorry to hear that you kind of got wrapped up in that unknowingly. All right, this next story is titled MLM Horror Story from Vemma. I'm excited for this one. It says, love your content. You seem genuinely kind and I appreciate that. Thank you. A little about me. I'm a freelance copy editor, aka an independent contractor, just like the Huns, except I get paid for every hour I work. And I also have a very cushy, easy, well-paying part-time retail job, so I genuinely feel like I have the time freedom they claim is so important. I work at most 30 hours a week. This isn't a brag, it's just an example of how you can achieve the goals you're reaching for financially without being part of a scam. Yes! There are so many ways to get all of the things that MLMs promote without being in an MLM. I wanted to speak about my short stint in the now defunct company Vemma. If you're not familiar with Vemma, they were a supplement pyramid scheme, and I can say pyramid scheme because in 2015 the FTC took them down for being a pyramid scheme. Now they no longer exist. We love it. I also wanted to include that this story mentions SA briefly. I'm going to abbreviate that for monetization purposes, but you can see it over here on the screen. Back in 2012 when I was 16, I was approached by another kid in my math class. He was going through a tough tough time. He had confided that he was having some thoughts of self-harm, and he was also going to be a father at 16. So things were obviously really stressful for him. He invited me over to his house for a party. I felt empathetic towards his situation and figured he needed a friend. So even though we weren't necessarily friends, I loved partying, drinking, and other substances, so I figured I would go and just be nice to him. I arrive at the party, and it turns out that it's a pitch for the MLM product-based pyramid scheme, Vemma. Vemma was an energy drink and supplement company. Turns out my friend's older brother, a college student on the West Coast, had signed up. He and his other college buddies started to pitch the opportunity to us, a group of high schoolers. Vemma was allowed to recruit kids as young as 14 in their scam. 14? Seriously? I haven't looked into Vemma that much, but like that's messed up. Wow. Okay, so they were allowed to recruit kids as young as 14 in their scam, so there were even 1 or 2 middle schoolers involved. Oh god. Okay, after the pitch we were given alcohol and smoked some weed and then went home. The scam started to completely take over my high school. Many were skeptical, but I would say that at least 15 to 20% of my high school joined. Oh no. It took a few meetings, but I eventually signed up for over $300. My parents told me I could sign up, but I needed to use my own money. I wish they would have given me a hard no, though I was pretty rebellious, so I may have done it anyway. That $300 was almost all my savings at the time from working my after school / weekend job. After I joined, my upline completely abandoned me. It's sad to admit, but I was in awe of these 20-somethings getting their cars paid for and earning millions. I thought that was what I wanted. All these college students and friends I thought I had abandoned me, and I was left alone to try and figure out what to do with the product and info packets I was supposed to sell. I definitely had quotas and PV to reach, but it's been almost 10 years, so I don't remember exact amounts. I reached out to a few people on Facebook, but I was way too embarrassed to do much with the business. Funny thing is, I worked for my mom, a real small business owner, and used to make calls for her all the time. This was nothing like that. Anyway, my upline continued to have these recruiting meetings and afterwards would throw drug-fueled parties with 14-year-olds. That is messed up. It's sounding like drugs and alcohol are kind of intertwined with all of these meetings, which first of all is illegal for a minor, and second of all, that's extremely manipulative on another level because you're having minors under the influence while you are trying to recruit them into this pyramid scheme and while you are trying to get them to invest in it. That's truly horrifying, actually. I ended up meeting a 21-year-old at one of these parties and we quickly started dating. He was constantly talking about earning his car, becoming a millionaire, etc. He rarely talked about anything else. That's because MLMs are cults and they consume your life. After a few months, I realized I had spent nearly $500 and made nothing and decided it was time to get out of the business and also break up with my boyfriend. Good for you. I told him I was thinking about ending things and he took me to the park and assaulted me. I'm so sorry that happened. The age of consent is or was 16 in Ohio, but anyway, it was pretty bad. I'm really sorry to hear that. I know that seems kind of unrelated to the MLM itself, but the culture of my branch of Vemma seemed incredibly inappropriate for a group of teenagers. I agree, based on what you told me. It seems so predatory to recruit and steal from literal teenagers who were already reckless enough. Worst of all, I know other girls in the business had similar experiences with their male upline. Oh God. I know a couple of guys in the upline promised to go out with these high school girls if they join the business. This is like so terrible. Truly, it is the most embarrassing thing I've ever been a part of, and I'm so glad I was able to get out quickly and separate myself from all those people. By the way, my ex-boyfriend got a 15-year-old pregnant a year later. Oh my God. I'm so happy in my life and believe that the work I do in retail with a small business owner and in freelancing aligns with my values. Selling out and scamming never works. Even if it works financially, it is not worth the stress and emotional strain. Hopefully this story was okay. Feel free to censor or cut anything out for monetization or to not share at all. I just hate MLM so much. I will censor some things for monetization, but I'm not going to cut anything out of your story. No, that's your story, that's your experience, and I absolutely want to share that. But it sounds like this group of people that you were involved with were extremely manipulative to minors, and that is so problematic. The drugs, the alcohol, the emotional manipulation of minors. I mean, does it get worse than that? I don't know. thank goodness you got out, and thank goodness Vemma is now deemed a pyramid scheme and other people can't also get sucked into this. And I'm very appreciative for you for typing this out and sending it to me and allowing me to share this with others. Your story is very important, and I think that we can all take something from this, so thank you. Okay, the next story says, not me, but my daughter, stepdaughter's story. Just a little background so you understand more why this is so low and gross. So my stepdaughter's mom, let's call her Bessie, okay, I'm on board, hasn't been the best mom. My stepdaughter even chose to live with us exclusively for the last 4 years before she went off to college. Well, once she turned 18 and was heading off to college, Bessie pushed her to join her paparazzi team. Ah, geez. Telling her she can sell the products to her fellow college students and online. Students don't have much money, and she's very busy with sports, studying, and working out, let alone living in a small dorm room needing to store all that jewelry. Good point. My first year of college, I was in a dorm room and there were 3 girls to 1 room. Okay, there was barely enough room to walk, let alone like store paparazzi inventory. But Bessie had my daughter pay for the jewelry with money she doesn't have since she doesn't work being a student athlete, using the money she received from a birthday and graduation that's supposed to last her all year in school. My stepdaughter's grandma, dad's mom, ended up buying everything so that her granddaughter doesn't have to try and sell everything while she's in college and playing a sport. It's just sad they get so sucked into the MLM world that the money matters more than the relationships you are ruining in the process. It's sad and gross, but thank you for reading this. Yeah, it is sad and gross. It's very, very sad. And the saddest part is that these business opportunities are pitched to people in such a way that it makes them believe like, I'm helping you, I'm giving you this opportunity so that you can make all of this money and you can have financial freedom and time freedom and all that stuff. But that's not really what it's about. It's not about just sharing an opportunity because you're so thoughtful and you love them so much and you want them to be successful. It's completely self-serving. The reason that you're sharing this opportunity is because you get a bonus out of it. It benefits you financially. That's why you want them to join. And your daughter too, like your own daughter who is understandably probably not financially stable in this point in her life. People are so broke in college, okay? At least that was my experience. I was also a student athlete in college. I was on the University of Washington cheer and dance team, go Dogs. But let me tell you, you have no time for anything outside of school and sports. I did end up incorporating a couple of jobs into my last few years of college, but let me tell you, it's a struggle, okay? And so preying on vulnerable, young college students, fresh out of high school, new to college, involved in sports, just trying to figure it out, and then your own mom tries to pitch you an MLM. That is so upsetting to me, especially when you go back to what we were talking about earlier with it being like a self-serving opportunity that you're presenting somebody. Yeah, I really don't like that, and I'm sorry that she kind of got sucked into that for a little bit, but it sounds like her grandma kind of came in and saved the day and like took the inventory away so she didn't have to deal with it. And paparazzi too, like I'm sorry, this is me getting a little catty and judgmental, but college kids don't want paparazzi jewelry. Of all the MLMs in the entire world, that's probably the least likely that college kids are gonna want to buy into. So I'm happy to hear that she kind of dodged that bullet, it seems. And with that, that's all the stories that I have for this video. I didn't get through all of them, but please, please, please keep sending them to me. I love when I get a little notification in my inbox and it says MLM horror story on it. And I would love to get to a place where I'm getting enough stories continuously that I can kind of make this a regular thing on my channel. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in my next one real soon.